knowledge base. Okay, so now we've done all of that, we'll get into our navigation. So we are just going to have a look at the web app for now. We can see the top left-hand corner. We have our different views of our schedule. I think the preferred view tends to be the swim lane. And you can see here that we have all of our workers, or what we call resources, sitting down here. We will have a little bit more of a look at this for now. This is just a quick overview. We have a vertical swim lane. It's not my favorite view, but obviously everyone has their own preferences as to how they would rather work. We have the calendar view, which again is self-explanatory. This is just, you can see why this maybe isn't the best view, because it is just sort of giving you a job and a color, which we'll go through in a quick second. But it could be a good idea just to get an overview of the whole month. And then we also have this map view. So this is just a good sort of screenshot of where everyone is. So we can see that we have a Luminary worker in Sydney, which is probably Teddy. And then we have the rest of us here. So the Luminary workers, and then we've also got the jobs that we have scheduled. On the map view, we can come in and out there. So that's just the map views. Did anyone have any questions on those? Okay, great. So yeah, like I said, I think for the most part, we'll be working in the swim lanes for the purpose of training, but it's just good to know that those other views exist depending on how you prefer to work. We also have up the top here, the all work section. This is just a big list of all of the jobs that are in at the moment. I'm not sure, again, how often you would want to use this screen. Sorry, I went a bit quick there. But basically, you can come into each job. If you click on the job, it brings up this job on its own. We can see where it's at, any sort of information based on that job. And then this is also our recurring schedules. So if we've set up a recurring job, they will show up here in our recurring schedules. Next, we have our activities. So activities are something that we would set up for non-billable items that we want to schedule. So say we want to schedule in meal breaks, or if a worker's got particularly long travel to a client, and we just want to make sure that that's scheduled in, we can create these activities. And this is a list view for upcoming activities here. Now we also have our resources. So within Skedulo, basically people are resources, and we also have assets. So assets might be, say, the client needs a wheelchair, the worker needs to take a wheelchair with them. I'm not sure if that's particularly relevant to Ballycara, but basically you can create these assets within Salesforce, within Luminary, sorry, and you can schedule those assets. So some people have company cars that they want to schedule and whatnot, and that's where you would put this here. For today, we're mainly going to be just looking at people. So we've got our resources in here. Now we can look at our availability calendar. So this shows us the availability of the worker and what they have here. When we're scheduling jobs, the worker has to be available, obviously, for you to be able to schedule for them. So we can add new availability in here. We can also add an availability template. So if for example, we have a certain amount of workers who are available during working hours, I'm not sure what you would want to call it, but let's call it Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. we're going to select every day, and our start time is going to be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I might just do Monday and Friday. Just for time's sake. Now, if I hit next, I then get an option to select my workers that I want to add to that availability. So I know that I've already got the Luminary admin worker as a 24/7 availability just for the purpose of training and whatnot. But say I wanted to add Rohan to that, and then I could save that. And that will basically just add in, but let's do it to someone. Oh, I've got Luminary worker. Let's do Luminary admin. And the start date was there. And we don't have to put an end date in. And so then we'll see now that this availability is popped in for this worker here. So this is something that you will need to set against your workers based on the jobs you want to schedule them. And it's all done from this console. Now, in the manage screen, we have all of these different things that we can manage within Skedulo. And I guess that sort of moves us on to the next part of our agenda, which is the Skedulo foundations. And the first thing that we will look at is tags, which is the bottom of the list. The tags, we did touch it on a previous session. These are things that you can note against a client for that you want to be flagged when a scheduler is scheduling a job. And these are basically, it could be a language that the worker speaks, a gender preference, any sort of qualifications or anything like that. So we have actually been added in some tags based on your requirements. And so these are just basically scheduling sort of, I guess like things you want to keep in mind when you're scheduling for a job. So if I come back into Luminary and I look at our Mary contact, and I just have to remember where this sits. Sorry. The last place I look. Yes, sorry. So in the associations tab, we can see down here that this client has a tag. We can click a new tag. We can come into Mary and we can say she speaks Spanish. So we would prefer her to have a Spanish speaking worker. We have this required checkbox. What this means is that you won't actually be able to schedule work for this client unless the resource has this tag associated with them, which I'll show you in a second. So this is only something that you would select if this is absolutely necessary for that worker to have, for that job to be scheduled for. If we don't select this, we need to put a waiting in. So I've just got here, oh, where is it? So here, this is a general Skedulo knowledge article, and it just shows you the different weightings. So basically 1, 2, 3, 1's low, 2's medium, 3 is high. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put it as a 1 because Mary does speak English, but she would rather a Spanish speaker. So we're just going to put that as a low weighting and save that. What that means is that when we schedule for Mary, which I'll just show you, we'll go back into some much more detail, but I'll just show you for the purpose of the tags. But when I hit that schedule job button, resourcing requirements, we can see Spanish is here, but it won't limit the workers available to do this service because we haven't put it as required. So that is just the tags. I'll just show you as well. So we have now we're in Lumery. If we come here and we go to our resource, which is our resources, and we come into, say, Lumery worker, into their related list, this is where we can add tags to this resource to say that this worker has a first aid certificate, he's male, he speaks Spanish. So this would be great. So when we were scheduling for Mary, if Lumery worker was available, he would become one of the top, recommended workers because he does speak Spanish. So that's great. So while we're in here, I'll just do a little bit of a backtrack and give you some navigation tips within Lumery. My apologies. So right now I'm in the Lumery app. Salesforce has this ideas of apps, and you can change the app up here in the app launcher. And I know this is the Lumery app, because it's got Lumery here, but also because these tabs across the top are very much Lumery related tabs and objects. So if I click here and I click on Skedulo app, you'll see that will all change. So now my tabs at the top have all changed. And now where I was just in resources, which you can free type in here to bring up any of these tabs from any app. You don't necessarily need to be in the app, but it's just a lot easier to navigate to your app because then all of the tabs that you need are at the top. And we have our resources here, which is where we just went to add that tag in. And this is good because this will lead on to our next few parts. It's also something to keep in mind if you are switching between the two, and I still do it, I still will be like, oh, where is this? And I'll realize that I'm in the Skedulo app rather than Lumery app. So you just need to keep that in mind, that you might need to do a bit of switching between the two. But for a scheduler, like I said at the start, we do recommend just staying within this Skedulo web app. It's much more sort of catered to your role and what you'll be doing. So now, yeah, so that. So now we'll get back into some of our foundations. So we have regions within Skedulo, regions within Lumery. These have already been given to us and we've already popped these in the system based on the regions that you serve. These regions will pop up in a lot of filter views, and when you're scheduling for a client, obviously the region that they're in and the region that the worker is in will be taken into consideration. But we'll see a little bit more on that when we actually schedule a job. We also have availability, which I actually did go into a bit of detail before. This is the workers' availability within Salesforce. The workers' availability within Lumery and to work. The next thing we have is what we call job types, so single bookings and group events. So we'll go through how to schedule for both of these. And then also within Skedulo, I'm not sure if this is something that you would use, but we have this idea of blacklisting and whitelisting. What this does is it's location based, so you can whitelist or blacklist a worker based on a location. So you might want to say that this worker absolutely will not go to this region, and so you would blacklist them against that region. To do that, we would come into our Lumery Skedulo app. We would find our resource. We would click on the related tab, and it's called location resource scores. So we could select new, and we could say, this is our recent Gold Coast Center. This worker doesn't want to go to this location. So we could blacklist that. And then that would mean that anytime we want to book a job at that location, this worker wouldn't come up as available to be able to select. We also have the idea of whitelisting, which is, again, it's sort of the opposite. It's if that person, can go to that location, it's probably not as useful as blacklisting someone if they've just said that they're categorically not going to a certain region. We can do that. So do we have any questions? Do we want to go over anything again from that section?
Amy, I do have a question.
Yep.
So can we just blacklist or whitelist per region, or can we do it per client as well?
So as in like this worker doesn't want to work with this client?
Yeah, or the other way around. Obviously,
Okay.
we would know that in memory when scheduling the job, but
Yeah.
is there any feature that allows us to do that?
You do have, let me just have I'll probably just have to confirm because I know in the NDIS world there is something. But yeah, we might just have to follow that up, Teddy, if that's okay. If we can just pop that down to follow up if we want to stop a worker being assigned to a certain participant and vice versa. We'll follow that up and we'll cover that off at the start of the next session. That's a good question. Okay. Okay, great. So yeah, actually, Teddy, would you mind just maybe slacking Alvin and just seeing if we can find that out during this workshop?
Yep, sure.
Just if it is out of the box, otherwise we'll have to have a look into that.
Yep.
Thanks.
Will do.
Okie dokie. So I guess the last thing is okay, I'm going to switch back now to my Skedulo app. So the last thing here, we're going to click onto the resources, is just if we want to create a new resource, we would come into the resource. So we've got a new support worker. So we're just going to come in here and select a new, and then we're just going to fill out all of the information. You can see here we have we can put in their primary region, so the region that they primarily want to be in. We can put in their weekly hours, their contracted hours, all of this information. And we can actually just create our resources that way. So that's our new workers in the system. I won't save that one. You can see it's fairly easy and straightforward to create those. Okay, so now we're going to move on to